The unexpected arrival. The Zalathi Confederation had perfected first contact protocols over 3 millennia. Their gleaming diplomatic vessels, adorned with crystalline arrays that broadcast peaceful intentions in 47 universal languages, had welcomed dozens of species into the galactic community. Their approach was always the same: send envoys bearing gifts of knowledge, demonstrate advanced medical technology, and extend the olive branch of interstellar trade. It had never failed, until the humans arrived. Ambassador Thymel Ka stood on the observation deck of the Harmony Station, her 4 arms clasped in the traditional gesture of welcome. The station orbited a neutral star system, specifically chosen for this historic moment. Humanity's first faster-than-light message had been detected 6 months ago, and the Confederation had immediately begun preparations for another successful integration of a new species into their peaceful alliance. The assembled diplomatic corps represented 15 different species, all waiting in their finest ceremonial attire. Floating displays showed artistic representations of Earth's culture gleaned from their transmissions: music, literature, mathematics. The Zalathi had even prepared a special presentation about how humanity's unique proteins could revolutionize certain medical treatments. Everything was perfect for a textbook: peaceful first contact, then space itself seemed to tear open. What emerged from the humans' jump point wasn't the small, elegant vessel they'd expected from a species just discovering FTL travel. It was death, made manifest in metal and purpose. The UES Prometheus stretched nearly 2 kilometers from bow to stern, its hull a brutal composition of overlapping armor plates and weapon systems. Where Zalathi ships curved gracefully like ocean waves, this monster was all hard angles and threatening edges. Weapon ports lined its flanks like the scales of some ancient dragon, and sensor arrays swept space with an intensity that made everyone on the station step back from the windows instinctively. Admiral Chen Wei stood on the Prometheus's bridge, studying the alien station through narrowed eyes. Behind him, his command staff worked with the quiet efficiency of career military personnel. The holographic displays around them showed detailed tactical analyses of every ship present, every possible firing solution, every escape vector. Earth's government had been very clear in their orders. Humanity would not walk into the galaxy as sheep among wolves. "Admiral, we're receiving multiple communication attempts from the station," reported Communications Officer Janet Park. "They seem confused, sir." Chen Wei allowed himself a thin smile. "Of course they are. They expected diplomats. We sent warriors. Maintain defensive posture but respond to their hails. Let them know we come in peace, but we're prepared for war." The decision to send a Dreadnought had been controversial on Earth. The discovery of faster-than-light communication had revealed a galaxy full of life, and humanity's first instinct had been excitement. But then the analysts had started their work. They studied the patterns in alien communications, the subtle hierarchies, the unspoken rules. What they found was concerning. The galaxy operated on a system where military might, while not openly displayed, clearly determined influence. Species that arrived weak stayed weak. Those that arrived strong set terms. Humanity had learned that lesson too many times in its own bloody history to ignore it now. Commander Vera Kowalski, the Prometheus's tactical officer, studied her displays with the intensity of a hawk watching mice. "Sir, I'm reading 17 vessels in the vicinity. None are showing active weapons, but I'm detecting what could be hidden weapon ports on at least 3 of them. The station itself has minimal defenses, mostly navigational shields. Keep monitoring," Chen Wei ordered, "and make sure our point. Defense systems are running hot. I don't trust anyone who hides their guns." On the Harmony Station, Ambassador Thymel Ka's peaceful welcome had turned into barely controlled chaos. The consortium representatives were flooding her with questions, concerns, and in some cases, demands for immediate evacuation. The Keelan delegation was particularly agitated, their feathers ruffling in ancient threat displays. "This is unprecedented," squawked Keelan Prime Speaker Voss. "They send a warship to a peaceful summit? What kind of barbarism is this?" Thymel Ka tried to maintain composure, her training in xenopsychology racing to understand human behavior. "Perhaps their culture simply values protection. We must not judge them by our standards." But even as she spoke, she felt the cold grip of fear. The human vessel wasn't just armed. It was designed for war in a way that no Confederation ship had been for centuries. The Zalathi had weapons, yes, but they were afterthoughts, additions, to ships built for science and exploration. This human vessel was different. Every line of its construction spoke of a species that had not just contemplated violence, but perfected it. The main view screen flickered to life, and humanity got its first look at alien life. Admiral Chen Wei stood in his crisp military uniform, his posture straight and eyes direct. Behind him, his bridge crew continued their work, a deliberate display of professional competence. "Greetings from Earth and the United Earth Space Force," Chen Wei began, his voice carrying the authority of someone used to command. "I am Admiral Chen Wei, commanding officer of the UES Prometheus. We come seeking dialogue and mutual understanding, but we felt it important to demonstrate that humanity stands ready to defend its interests and its allies." The silence that followed his words was deafening. The assembled aliens had prepared for many possible human responses, but this casual admission of military intent while speaking of peace was entirely outside their experience. Ambassador Timal Ka recovered first, her diplomatic training overcoming her shock. "Admiral Chen Wei, we welcome humanity to the galactic community. I am Ambassador Thimal Ka of the Zalathi Confederation. We had prepared a different sort of reception for your species' first contact." "I can see that, Ambassador," Chen Wei replied, his tone warming slightly. "And we appreciate the gesture. However, humanity has learned through difficult experience that it's better to negotiate from a position of strength. We mean no threat to peaceful species, but we will not enter the galaxy unprepared for those who might see us as prey." The brutal honesty of his words sent another ripple through the assembled diplomats. The Terran representative, a species that prided itself on reading subtext and hidden meanings, found none. The human was saying exactly what he meant, a concept, so foreign to galactic diplomacy that it took several moments to process. Captain Marcus Thompson, the Prometheus's Marine commander, watched the exchange from his ready room. His battalion of 500 soldiers stood ready in full combat armor, a precaution that now seemed prescient. The alien's reaction to a single warship told him everything he needed to know about the galaxy's military readiness. They were soft, comfortable, unprepared for the kind of total warfare that humanity had perfected over millennia of bloody evolution. Back on the bridge, Chen Wei continued the conversation, carefully building rapport while never backing down from humanity's position. He spoke of Earth's history, carefully edited to emphasize humanity's journey from conflict to cooperation, but never hiding that the conflict had been brutal and defining. He talked about humanity's desire for peaceful coexistence, while making it clear that peace for humans had always been won through strength. The Zalathi and their allies listened with growing unease and fascination. This species was unlike anything they'd encountered. Most spacefaring civilizations had long ago abandoned military posturing in favor of economic and cultural influence. But humans seemed to have reached the stars not in spite of their warrior nature, but because of it. Their technology, crude, by galactic standards in some ways, was remarkably advanced in others, particularly anything involving kinetic energy, targeting systems, and armor. As the hours passed, a strange dynamic began to emerge. The aliens found themselves actually relieved that humanity had been honest about their military capabilities. Too many times in galactic history, species had hidden their true nature until it was too late. The humans, for all their frightening military display, were at least being transparent. When predators meet, the second day of negotiations had barely begun when everything changed. Commander Kowalski was the first to notice the anomaly, her trained instincts picking up the subtle shift in background radiation that preceded a jump point opening. But this wasn't like the human arrival. This was multiple points opening in perfect synchronization. "Admiral, we have incoming. Multiple contacts bearing 27 Mark IV. They're coming in hot," she reported, her voice cutting through the diplomatic channel that was still open. 23 ships materialized from hyperspace, their hulls bearing the aggressive scarlet markings of the Corvan Empire. Unlike the peaceful vessels of the Confederation, these were clearly warships, though of a different philosophy than the Prometheus. Where the human vessel was a hammer, these were scalpels, sleek, fast, designed for surgical strikes and rapid dominance. Ambassador Thymel Ka's coloration shifted to a pale blue, the Zalathi equivalent of going white with fear. No, not now. The Corvans weren't supposed to know about this summit. Admiral Chen Wei's response was immediate and decisive. All hands, battle stations, shields up, weapons hot. Commander Kowalski, plot firing solutions on all hostile vessels. He turned to the communication screen where the assembled aliens watched in shock. Ambassador, I recommend you evacuate the station immediately. The Corvan fleet commander appeared on screen, his reptilian features twisted in what passed for a smile among his kind. How convenient. The Confederation's latest pets and their protectors all in one location. You will surrender immediately, or we will take what we want from your burning wreckage. The Confederation representatives erupted in panic. The Corvans were known raiders, technically part of the galactic community, but operating on its edges, taking what they wanted through intimidation and occasional violence. They had never attacked a diplomatic summit before, but the presence of a new species, potentially weak and full of unique biological and technological resources, must have been too tempting. Admiral Chen Wei's expression didn't change. Corvan Commander, I am Admiral Chen Wei of the United Earth Space Force. You will withdraw immediately, or we will consider your presence an act of war against humanity. The Corvan laughed, a harsh sound like grinding metal. One ship against 23? You humans are either very brave or very stupid. We have analyzed your vessel. Your weapons are primitive, kinetic-based. Your shields are barely worth mentioning. You will surrender or you will die. What happened next would be remembered in galactic history as the moment everything changed. Chen Wei turned to his tactical officer. Commander Kowalski, demonstrate human combat doctrine. Fire at will. The Prometheus erupted into violence with a coordination that stunned every observer. Its primary railguns, dismissed as primitive by the Corvan, accelerated tungsten rounds to significant fractions of light speed. The first Corvan vessel's shields, designed to disperse energy weapons, offered no more resistance than tissue paper. The round punched through the ship from bow to stern, its kinetic energy converting to heat and plasma, turning the vessel into an expanding cloud of debris in less than a second. But that was just the beginning. The Prometheus's point defense systems, originally designed to intercept missiles and fighters, proved equally effective against the Corvan attack craft. Hundreds of small-caliber railguns created a wall of metal around the human ship, shredding anything that came close. Meanwhile, its missile systems launched a coordinated strike that would have made ancient Earth naval commanders weep with pride. The human missiles weren't just explosives. They were intelligent, adaptive weapons that communicated with each other, coordinating their attacks to overwhelm point defenses. They struck in waves, the first sacrificing themselves to clear the path for the second, which delivered devastating plasma warheads directly to Corvan reactor cores. Captain Marcus Thompson's voice came over the intercom. Admiral, requesting permission to deploy boarding teams. Negative, Captain. We're making a point here, weapons only. In 12 minutes, it was over. 8 Corvan ships were nothing but expanding debris fields. 6 more were crippled, venting atmosphere and crying for mercy. The remaining 9 had fled the moment they realized what they were facing. The Prometheus had taken 7 hits, its armor scorched but unbreached. Not a single human life had been lost. The silence that followed was profound. The assembled diplomatic representatives stared at the tactical displays in disbelief. The Corvans had been the boogeyman of the frontier for centuries, their raids devastating to unprepared colonies. And a single human ship had just decimated them with an ease that bordered on casual. Ambassador Thymel Ka was the first to speak, her voice trembling. Admiral Chen Wei. What are you? Chen Wei's expression softened slightly. We're humans, Ambassador. We come from a world where survival meant being better at violence than anything trying to kill us. We fought wars that devastated continents, built weapons that could crack our planet's crust. We've been monsters to each other for millennia." He paused, letting his words sink in. "But we've also learned from that violence. We've learned that strength without wisdom is destruction, that power without purpose is chaos. We came to the stars not to conquer, but to find our place. But make no mistake, we will not be victims." The Terran representative spoke up, his voice thoughtful. "You could have destroyed them all. Why show mercy?" "Because strength isn't about destroying everything you can," Captain Thompson interjected, appearing on screen beside his admiral. "It's about destroying only what you must. Those surviving Corvins will spread the word. Others will think twice before viewing humanity as prey." Over the next hours, as rescue operations began for the surviving Corvins, a fundamental shift occurred in the summit. The Confederation representatives no longer saw humanity as a potential new member to be guided and protected. They saw them as something far more valuable and terrifying, a guardian species, one capable of violence on a scale they'd forgotten was possible, but tempered by choice and principle. The Keelan Prime Speaker, who had been most offended by humanity's military arrival, was now the most eager to establish treaties. "Your combat doctrine," he said to Admiral Chen Wei, "it's unlike anything in our databases. You don't just use weapons, you think in violence, see patterns in chaos that we cannot comprehend." Chen Wei nodded slowly. "Every human child learns chess, Go, or similar strategic games. We study history not just to learn from it, but to understand how conflicts are won and lost. Our entertainment is filled with strategic scenarios. We've been preparing for this moment unconsciously for our entire existence." Ambassador Thaimal Ka coordinated the establishment of new accords. The Zalathi Confederation, for all their peaceful ways, weren't fools. They recognized that the galaxy had just become a more dangerous place. Or perhaps they were finally seeing dangers that had always been there. Having humanity as an ally, as a shield against those dangers, was worth whatever concerns they had about human nature. "There will be conditions," Chen Wei stated during the formal treaty negotiations. "Humanity will not be your weapon, pointed at whatever threatens you. We will defend the innocent, protect the peaceful, but we will not be conquest by proxy. We seek trade, cultural exchange, scientific advancement, but any species that sees our openness as weakness will learn otherwise." The surviving Corvin commander, his ship crippled but intact, was brought aboard the station for the formal surrender. His scaled face showed an expression none of the Confederation species had seen before on a Corvin. "Respect. You fight like the old gods," he said to Chen Wei, "like the legends of the first wars, before the galaxy grew soft and complacent. We thought such warriors were myth." "We're not gods," Chen Wei replied. "We're just humans, and we're here to stay." As the summit concluded with humanity formally recognized as a sovereign galactic power and defensive partner to the Confederation, the implications rippled outward. Some species began urgent military upgrades, remembering skills they'd forgotten. Others sought immediate alliance with Earth, offering technology and resources in exchange for protection. But perhaps the most significant change was in humanity itself. As the Prometheus prepared to return to Earth with news of successful first contact, the crew reflected on what they'd learned. They weren't the weakest species in the galaxy as they'd feared, nor were they the strongest, as they'd briefly hoped. They were something more important. They were necessary. The galaxy had been a garden, peaceful but vulnerable. Now it had gardeners with swords ready to tend the flowers while watching for wolves. And as the Prometheus jumped back toward Earth, its crew carried with them the knowledge that humanity's long, bloody history hadn't been a shameful past to overcome, but preparation for their true purpose. Standing guard at the gates of peace, weapons ready, watching the dark between the stars.